Hey, what is going on guys? RvzStealth here, and in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the most played champions in Challenger for this patch. Because Challenger players are highly prioritizing these champions in 8.13, if you can play them at a high level and if you've got a lot of practice on these champions, then they are going to be the ones that are going to be the best to carry with in 8.13. So we're going to go over the 3 most picked champions for every single role, and we're going to start off in the top lane. So the 3 top lane picks for this patch are Camille, Mundo, and Darius. So Camille right now is still one of the most consistent bruiser top lane picks. Her kit is just really good for solo queue. She's pretty much got everything you want for a bruiser top lane champion. She's got great mobility, really good backline access with her E and her ultimate. She's also pretty good in the side lane against tank picks. She does a really good job at chopping them down because of her true damage, and she's also a pretty good tower pushing top laner as well, so her kit is just really good. It did get nerfed in this patch a little bit. Her E damage got nerfed, but she is still a very highly prioritized top lane pick. Now, Darius is actually the most picked top laner in Challenger for 8.13. He's just a really good pick for this meta. He's got a great early game. He does well into most tanks in the top lane, into most bruisers as well. And he's also a really strong skirmishing top laner, especially once he does hit level 6. And then as for Mundo, he's definitely one of the better tanks in the top lane for this patch. Because of recent nerfs to Ornn and because Sion's also been falling off over the past few patches, there's not really any other top lane tank pick right now that can really contest with Mundo. He's also a really good pick into a lot of the AP heavy compositions that are being played right now. So if the enemy team wants to play something like Brand or Vladimir bot lane, and they're also running an AP champion in the mid lane, then because of Mundo's E and because he can just stack magic resist, he can do a really good job at just soaking a ton of magic damage in team fights. He's also a great pick into pretty much any other tank in the laning phase. Once he does get to his first core item, or once he gets a few core items, he can really start to take over in the side lane against pretty much any other tank. So for jungle in this patch, we've got Graves, Talia, and Nocturne consisting of 3 of the most picked for 8.13. So Graves is just overall still a really good jungle pick. Its clear is really healthy. It's also really fast in the early game, and it's very hard to actually punish Graves in the early game due to the fact that his clear is just so strong. He's a really good duelist as well. He can outduel most other junglers in the early game, and he also does have a great early to mid game power spike, which is great for this meta. Talia is pretty much your best spam gank jungler for this patch. If you're just looking to have a ton of pressure in the early game, then Talia is definitely your pick. Because of her passive, it just allows her to get around the map extremely fast, and she can just gank a ton in the early game, provide a lot of pressure, and you can just win games with Talia in the first few minutes if you do play it well. Talia is also one of the only really good AP junglers for this patch, so she's just a really good pick to have in your champion pool. If you do lack some AP on your team, then you don't really want to be picking any of the strong AD junglers. You should be looking to pick up Talia in this patch, have her in your champion pool, because there's just going to be a lot of different scenarios as to where she is going to be a really good pick. And then as for the Nocturne pick, this is a champion that you never really see in the higher elos until the past few patches. Nocturne is just a lot more popular right now. What a lot of players are doing on him is they're running lethal tempo as their keystone. It actually makes him a pretty strong dueling jungler in the early game, because if you get your fear off on the opponent, you're going to proc the lethal tempo and you're going to have a lot of dueling potential because of that lethal tempo proc. You also do have really good ganks at level 6. If you get a successful gank down bot lane at level 6 with Nocturne, you can pretty much just single-handedly win your team the game. If you kill the enemy AD carry, it's going to be very hard for them to come back into the game, and whenever you do have your ultimate up, if you can just continuously pick off the enemy AD carry and make them useless, then you're just going to win a ton of games on Nocturne in this patch. If we take a look at the mid lane now, Aurelia, Zed, and LeBlanc consist of 3 of the most picked for 8.13. So Aurelia did get hit with the nerf in this patch. It didn't really affect mid lane Aurelia though. Top lane and bot lane Aurelia did get affected more by the changes, but mid lane Aurelia is still doing very well in this patch. This is the champion that if you can play to her highest level, then you're gonna have a ton of success on her. She's great into a lot of squishy mid lane champions. If you can play her well against skill shot shot oriented mages, then you're gonna be able to dodge out on a ton of their damage in the laning phase. When you do it 6 with Aurelia, you can look to go for an all-in and you can burst down the enemy squishy mid lane champion. Your skirmish is also really good, especially once you do hit level 6. If you can land a good ultimate on 2 members at level 6, if you're in a 2v2 scenario, then you are gonna win that a lot of the time. And then as for Zed and LeBlanc, they're definitely two of the better assassins for this patch. Zed and LeBlanc historically have been pretty weak picks if the game does go pretty late into the game. At least most assassins are like that. And because games are ending super quickly right now, because the early to mid game is a lot more important, if you can play your assassins well in this patch, then you are going to have a lot of success on them. LeBlanc might even be the strongest assassin for this patch if you can play her to her fullest potential, because LeBlanc has so much kill pressure in the laning phase, especially once she hits level 3, she can just look to take over the lane. If you can jump in and you can land your chain on LeBlanc consistently, then you're just going to have a great laning phase, you're going to be able to pressure really well, and once you do hit that level 3, you also do have really good skirmish, so if you can set up plays with your jungler and just look to take advantage of LeBlanc's good early game, then she is going to be a very good pick for this patch. So for the 3 most picked down in the bot lane carry role for this patch, we've got Yasuo, Lucian, and Kai'Sa. So Yasuo is your best bruiser that you can play in the bot lane for this patch. He's got a lot of kill pressure in the laning phase. If you pair him up with someone like an Alistar, a Blitz, or a Thresh, then you can look to have a really nice level 2 all-in. Your level 6 all-in is also really good with Yasuo, and this is a champion to where if you can get a small lead in the early game, if you get ahead of your opponent, then you can just completely take over the lane. For Lucian and Kai'Sa, they're definitely 2 of the more reliable AD carry picks. They're going to be your most consistent AD carries for this patch. Lucian is just a really versatile pick because you can pretty much play him into anything. He's got the mobility with his E, so he can do pretty well against a lot of these mages who are skill shot reliant down in the bot lane, like the Brand pick. He also does spike really nicely in the early to mid game with his Blade the Rune King and Black Cleaver, so it does also make him a great pick for this meta. And then despite the nerfs to Rageblade in this patch, Kai'Sa is still being highly prioritized. She's a pick to where if you get your Rageblade and you get your Nashers, your mid game is one of the strongest for any AD carries. You can just completely start to solo carry games and take over the game with Kai'Sa if you can play her well in that mid game. So she's definitely a little bit weaker than she was in previous patches, but she is still a great pick if you can play her at a high level. And then to round it out, guys, for the support role in this patch, we've got Morgana, Rakan, and Fiddlesticks as your 3 most picked. So Morgana is just a really good pick for this meta because she does great against pretty much any AP bot laner that is being played right now. She's also great against aggro lanes that are being played, so she's just a great counter overall to a lot of the most picked things down in the bot lane. She also does have really good gank setup in the laning phase, so if you can get your jungler to give you a few early game ganks, then it's really easy for you to just take over the lane with Morgana. And then for Rakan and Fiddlesticks, they're really good for this meta because they're picks that can make a lot of plays, and you can look to play very aggressive on these champions and just look to continuously keep pressuring your lead if you do get ahead with them in the early game. Both have really good level 6 all-ins. Fiddlesticks is definitely a little bit stronger in the laning phase than Rakan, but they both do a really good job at engaging at level 6. You can just completely take over the lane if you do get a nice level 6 all-in with these picks. Fiddlesticks is also a really nice counter to any bruiser down in the bot lane. If you're playing against any melees like the Yasuo or the Aurelia, because of the Fiddlesticks fear, it makes it very hard for those champions to actually do a ton in the laning phase. So if you are looking to a good counter to these bruiser bot lane picks, then Fiddlesticks is definitely one of the better ones. I think that Rakan and Fiddlesticks are also 2 of the best supports with these like AP champions down in the bot lane. If you have Fiddlesticks paired up with like a Heimerdinger, or if you got him paired up with a Brand or a Ziggs, you just have so much poke in the laning phase and you can just provide a ton of pressure down in the bot lane. Rakan is also really good with like the Ziggs, the Brand, any of these AP bot lane champions because your level 6 all-in is pretty much guaranteed to get a kill because of the amount of crowd control you have and the amount of burst damage you provide at level 6. So that is going to be all for this video, guys. If you did enjoy, then be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you have yet to already. So thanks for watching, guys. Have an awesome day, and I will see you in my next video.